Hi, I'm William Malik with today's bit of security for July 11th, 2024. We're going to talk about crossing the chasm. And this is the challenge that startups face when they want to break out of that initial early prototype mode and start reaching and appealing to a wider prospective audience. It's the biggest challenge that startups have. I mean, yes, sometimes they fail because they aren't able to secure funding or they just don't have the right mix of talent. But usually the success depends on being able to explain in simple, clear language what the business problem is that you're trying to solve and show how, in fact, you go about solving that. The trick is the simple, clear language. You see, most technologies begin with a very clever idea and insight into something that puts things together in a different way. And the developers are always fascinated with the technical capabilities that they've unleashed or harnessed or developed. But the trick is to be able to get beyond what the thing does and talk about what it's for. Now, I'm going to make a side, and this is thanks to Rhonda McLean, who first used this on the stage at a Gartner security conference nearly 30 years ago, where she said the difference between what a thing does and what it's for is illustrated by asking yourself, why do cars have brakes? Well, most people would say to slow down. And her point is that yes, brakes do help a car slow down, but that's not why a car has brakes. If you want to build a slow car, just build a slow car and don't bother with the expense and complexity of putting a braking system in at all. No, you see, the reason cars have brakes are so that you can go fast until you don't want to go fast. Information security functions like a brake on a car. It's not the security practitioner's job to reduce risk. The level of risk an organization faces is a board level decision. It is not a technical decision. You want to do online banking in Russia these days? Let me tell you a little bit about firewalls and locking down and, cyber informed engineering. But the amount of risk is a fact of the world. So what you need to do is to start off and say, okay, I know what the thing does. Let me try to turn it into something that explains what it's for. And here's an instance. I worked with a startup, and the key idea, this genius came up with the notion of being able to write an editor that could edit files across multiple locations with secure audit. They got this thing all dusted off, got it ready, went to talk to a CIO and said, I need 2 minutes of your time. CIO says, okay. Guy says, how would you like a universal editor with audit? And the CIO says, let me give you back 1 minute and 45 seconds. No. So the developer and the team went back and they thought long and hard about what kind of problem worried a CIO that a tool such as this could help. And they came back to the revised statement and they said, the problem many organizations have is there are lots of users running on lots of systems with lots of different kinds of permissions. How helpful would it be to have a tool that allowed you to securely examine the identities of all of these users and develop a way to make sure that they were consistent and correct, that they didn't violate separation of duties, and that you could handle exceptions in a natural way? CIO says, tell me more. Now, those two elevator pitches talk about before and after the chasm. The first one says, look at this really cool thing that I made. And the other one says, I'd like you to consider a new way to solve this business problem that I bet you right now have. The trick to crossing the chasm is to develop the story that begins and ends with the problem the customer has and doesn't get sidetracked into a lot of technological gorp about how it is that you solve it. So putting that story together and having a customer testimonial to fortify it, not some PR person, not some eager investor, but an actual user who's got, battle-scarred, world-weary, saying, yeah, we've had this problem for a while, and I'll tell you, this thing solves it, and here's why I like it. That's the way you cross the chasm. So if you're in a startup or an investor or looking at playing in the early adopter field, this is where you want to guide those startups to break out, to cross the chasm, and find their way to their real market. And that's your bit of security for the 11th of July, 2024. Be safe out there.